What is the model minority myth? Well, the model minority myth alludes to the idea that there's a specific ethnic group that's overall doing better than any other group in comparison. And it is the group that you want to be and look up to. The model minority group is often believed to be more academically inclined, more hardworking, and overall more successful as compared to any other minority group. And they often create a segregation between the Asian Americans, the minority, as well as the majority. Today, Asian Americans are believed to be the model minority, and this has caused friction within the Asian community and the other minorities. And with this in mind, it causes a lot of stress and pressure to be able to uphold this status as being the top tier ethnic group. According to Hee Young, who's an Asian American who is trying to figure out the effect that this myth has had on her life, she explains that this myth was created with the intention of maintaining white supremacy and white superiority, and the other intention being able to cause friction between the minority groups. An example of this is when the Americans would praise the Japanese for attaining great amounts of success despite all the restrictions that they had, such as the Japanese internment camps. And when you praise a specific ethnic group, it creates an unintentional criticism of the other groups for not being able to achieve that standard of success. Another effect is that Asian Americans have begun to internalize their mental, academic, emotional, and economic turmoil, and to ruin the reputation of the image of the Asian Americans. And the proper solution to all of this is that we need to start raising awareness that all Asian Americans shouldn't be represented by this one myth. And I often imagine a life where I'm expected to achieve success and I cannot settle for anything less. And I think about the pressure and sheer fear of letting people down, and it comes along with that. And it's easy to think about the failure and dishonor you will bring to your family if you don't do so. And there are many expectations that are sprung onto Asian Americans. For example, one of the stereotypes is that Asian Americans are good at math. We're mathematical geniuses. And this idea is so prevalent that when someone finds an Asian who is struggling with math, they often feel surprised and shocked that they're not good at math. And we are also believed to be very hardworking, gifted, and successful in achieving our goals and getting the careers that we want. But it is not surprising to me that the impact of this myth brings out negative emotions and the feeling of inferiority to others, according to Brandon Yu. This stereotype has created this archetype and pathway that all Americans should follow, and any deviation from it would be considered a failure. The constant comparisons to the other ethnic groups and, for example, to your other friends, it causes an unwanted feeling of inferiority that causes a mental strain in Asian Americans. Hee Young also relates to this statement personally, as she has said that she has internalized all the racism and oppression that she has felt throughout her life. Not only do I feel the pressure of hiding everything that I feel and telling everyone how I'm doing, I also feel the fear of letting people down. And with the expectation that all you are is success, and when someone looks at you, they see success, what happens if you do not? This seed has grown to be this fear of disappointing everyone because when you don't meet their expectations, you just feel like a failure. And Professor Hall states that Asian Americans, despite knowing that it is a myth, they still, when their academics and grades slip, they still feel shameful of their actions. And even though it is just a plain myth, it still affects them when they don't abide by it. And this stigma then adds to the idea that Asian Americans do not seek mental help when they need it. And that is mainly due to the fact that it is heavily frowned upon. In Prejudice, Stigma, Privilege, and Oppression, Professor Hall states that in the healthcare system, Asian Americans are basically ghosts, and that based on their research, Asian Americans, they might seem like they have the least amount of mental illness cases, but that is not entirely true because Asian Americans do not seek help when they need to, and they often rely on themselves. In a study that was published in the Cultural Diversity and Ethnic Minority Psychology in 2014, it explains how there is an inverse relationship between the internalized model minority myth and the help-seeking attitude. And that is due to the idea that this myth is an obstacle to Asian Americans finding the help they need. And because of this stigma that Asian Americans are successful, people have created this correlation between being successful and being mentally stable. And that causes Asian Americans to feel like they don't need to seek help because they're expected to not to. And I feel that I would be tainting this image, the image of the Asian Americans, when I expose the way that I'm truly feeling, because I have a reputation to uphold and a image to, and a face to save, basically. And I feel like, wouldn't you feel discouraged to want to seek help when everyone expects you to not feel this way and that you should be able to control your emotions because you are this model minority myth? Well, this inability for Asian Americans to speak up and seek help has caused, according to the CDC's 2005 study of the 10 leading causes of death, Asian Americans actually had the highest suicidal death rate compared to the other ethnic groups for females aged 15 to 24. But even knowing information like this, our mental health issues are still overlooked and ignored because of how shameful an action like that would be. And while there's no clear solution to fix this issue in our society, because it has been here for so long, we can lessen the impact and the hold that this has over Asian Americans. And we need to start believing that all Asian Americans shouldn't be generalized into this one homogeneous group. The world needs to slowly realize that Asian Americans are beginning to break out of their mold of just being the typical engineer, doctor, lawyer, and mathematical genius. And with the rise of popularity, like the uh, Asian Americans, actors and musicians, occupations that are not typical of the usual stereotypes, this can help people realize that Asian Americans are not all the same and they are not restricted. A good example is 88 Rising, being the prime example of Asian Americans proving the stereotypes wrong and becoming one of the first for many achievements. Joji, one of the members, actually topped the charts for R&B slash hip hop for his album Ballards One. And another member, Rich Brian, topped the iTunes hip hop chart with his album Amen. And regarding the health issue and where Asian Americans do not seek for help, with bands like 88 Rising, it can help Asian Americans realize that the chains are slowly loosening and will eventually break, and that it is perfectly fine to not follow along the specific pathway that the stereotype and myth has carved for us. And with time, Asian Americans will slowly become more comfortable with dealing with failure and realizing that it is not their fault and that they don't have to follow the social norms of being the typical Asian and begin showing their true feelings. And I think that people are becoming more aware and have grown to realize that this stereotype is not true anymore. And there is a shift in idealism and a sense of hope when you see Asian Americans thrive and grow in areas that they were not expected to. And these are rare cases, but I believe that it is a start, it is a good start that will start blooming into something that would change the stigma that all Asian Americans are this model minority and they will follow this specific pathway to achieve this standard of success. Thank you for listening. These are my note cards I have.